What's up, everybody? It's week one. This is the Shoehorn podcast here on the Colts on SI YouTube channel, the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. I'll take a little bit of a second, let some people get in here. But we're talking week one storylines. It's week one. Texans coming into the house. Let's fix the camera here. Ooh, but what's up, guys? What are you guys watching for week one? We've got a couple of storylines we're going to go over in the show today. If you got anything you want to bring up, you want to talk about, you want to discuss, as always, is kind of the structure of this show is we're kind of going over whatever you guys want to talk about. So throw it in the comments there. I'll throw it up on the screen. We'll talk about it. So yeah, whatever Colts questions you guys want is fair game. Aside from that, I've just got a couple of things. Just recent news items that came out. The injury report came out today. We'll hit on that a little bit. We'll kind of talk about some key matchups that we might be looking for week one. And then kind of that dreaded curse that's been going on for about the last 16 years. Just in terms of the week one record of the Colts, which has been historically awful for those past 16 years. What's up, guys? Yeah, but we'll just kick it off talking about that historic run that the Colts have been on in week one and years past. I was just Ian McMillan over here at SI.com just put a story about that a couple hours ago earlier today about how they're 2-13-1 in week one games dating back to 2008. So that's back Peyton Manning era. That we're talking about, that their week one issues have really been rough. Not to mention just the past 10 years that they've gone without a win. But even beyond those 10 years, it was some pretty poor performances. And kind of a tough team to go against this year, going into week one against the Houston Texans, who were a playoff team last year and kind of by all accounts throughout the league, kind of a Super Bowl contending team. A division rival that you know well, so tempers are going to be high. So it's kind of a tough matchup that you've got trying to break just kind of that moral thing that you've got going on with week one games, this mental aspect of the game. Just kind of hoping that doesn't play too huge of a role in what's going on in week one. And kind of a team that doesn't match up super well against the Colts, or kind of a team that you don't really, as a Colts fan, don't really like the matchup in terms of the strength of the Texans roster, which I would say would be on the offensive side of the ball in the pass game, namely their pass catchers in Nico Collins and Tank Dell, Dalton Schultz, and then you drop Stephon Diggs into the mix there. And then what is becoming, and I don't think that Colts fans like to admit it, a star quarterback over there in Houston in C.J. Stroud. So you've kind of got that passing game and that kind of firepower going up against a secondary that Colts fans all offseason have been clamoring for additions and improvements for and additions to, and just didn't get it. It's essentially running it back with the same group that you had last year, minus the waiver wire addition of Samuel Womack III, who at this point has been on the team for 10 days, so hard to say he'll have much of an impact come week one, other than just special teams. So you're running it back with that same group who kind of got it handed to them in week 18. Nico Collins going off for over 100 yards. That big post play, Rodney Thomas playing safety on that play there. But so you've got a different safety pairing in that sense from week 18, but no one new on the roster that wasn't there last year. Guys, and I know that safety's been kind of this hot spot of a position that everybody's been worried about. What are you guys' thoughts on Julian Blackmon and Nick Cross finally becoming the official starter that Gus Bradley named this week, going into week one? Hey, Greg, stepping into the chat, looking for the passing game to set up the run game. Some passes over 5 or 6 yards. Yeah, so when you've got Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor back there in that backfield, you want to be able to not let teams stack the box for you. When you know you've got that run threat, you don't want to see 8 in the box. So you want to have kind of that pass threat. You don't want a team to kind of think that they can stack the box and make you one-dimensional in the pass game and you not be able to do that. So, yeah, you're looking for these. I mean, you're definitely going to see some passes over 5 or 6 yards just because of the way that Anthony Richardson plays the position and his willingness to take shots downfield, which is going to be a far cry from what we saw from Gardner Minshew last season. So you're going to see those deep shots, but then I also want to see, you're talking about passes of over 5 or 6 yards. I'm kind of excited to see in the passing game, like RPO game, getting some quick passes off that maybe are only a 5 or 6 yard route, but getting those guys in space, getting Michael Pittman in space because he's a beast after the catch. Want to see what A.D. Mitchell can do after the catch. I'm not expecting to see Josh Downs play week 1, but he's also a guy that I would like to see get some yak yardage throughout the season. We'll kind of get into Downs later when we bring up the injury report, which is relatively small, luckily for Colts fans. Wyatt Law in the chat. Yeah, Colts have a bad habit of being slow starters. They have to break that habit and come out firing on all cylinders. Steichen has to get them ready to play. Yeah, this has been a habit for, what we said, 16 years. Steichen's only had that one chance last season to come out quickly. So you like to think that it's not an organizational issue, but kind of hard to argue with the evidence. You can't really pinpoint what it would be that would cause them to start so slow over such a long period of time. But yeah, I wouldn't say that Steichen going 0-2 in his week 1 debuts would necessarily be that bad of an indication or a sign of bad things to come. But you just kind of hope that he gets that week 1 win in his second season so that monkey just gets off the Colts' back. He doesn't have to worry about that going into next year. This doesn't have to be a conversation that we have again next season going into week 1 saying, is it this time, like, is this year 17 of them having just poor performances since that time period? And then I think that would be, 11 years? Or we had 10 or 11. I'm not sure the exact year that the last win in week 1 was. Let's pull that up. I'm not afraid to Google things in front of you guys while we're live on the air if I don't know the answer. Gosh, yeah. So, yeah, that year 2022, that week 1 against the Texans was the tie that they had that season. But since 2014, they haven't won a game. So, yeah, this is year 10 that we're coming up. Or I guess this would be year 11 that we're coming up. If they don't get the victory, they'll be 0-10-1, which is just a gross statistic, to be honest. Paul in the chat, hey, good to see you, man. Colts will win Sunday, Paul says. We'll run the ball down their throat and control the clock. Pass rush should help our secondary. Yeah, so kind of one of the things that I'm looking for is that Texans offensive line, which does have some holes. Just hoping that the kind of the strength of the Colts defense, that defensive line can take advantage of the weakness that they have on offense and try not to get burned by the strengths that they have. So it's kind of an interesting matchup. I think that's going to be the most interesting part. I think Colts fans are going to be super excited to watch when the Colts have the ball, obviously, just because we want to see more of Anthony Richardson. We want to see Anthony Richardson and Jonathan Taylor together. But I do think that matchup that you have when the Texans have the ball and the Colts are on defense is one to watch, just because the Texans' strength in the pass game, you just kind of have to hope that the secondary that the Colts have put together and kind of their performance is able to hold on long enough for that pass rush to get there. And you just kind of have to hope that pass rush can get there before expected to kind of alleviate some of the stress on that young defensive back. Yeah, but Paul's saying we'll run the ball and control the clock. I am excited to kind of see the splits that we have here in terms of run and pass. I think early, especially, you want to get that run game going. You don't want to kind of force Anthony Richardson to be making too many plays too early. And I want to give him a healthy dose of kind of not just running, but a good variety of the kind of runs that they're going to expect inside and outside zones, quarterback runs, I do want to see some of that just to get them mixed in, to get them back on their heels. Yeah, and then just hopefully you can take advantage once they start stacking the box to stop that run game. You can take those deep shots. Taylor had 160 plus yards last game with a banged up ankle. Yeah, yeah. And we only lost because of one bad play. I would argue there were multiple bad plays throughout that game. I do kind of hate to throw it all out of that 4th and 1. But I mean, it's hard to ignore that 4th and 1 when you know that, and that routine play just being a completion gets you such a good chance of getting to the playoffs. But yeah, I want to see Taylor go off. I do kind of think the only people that are talking about Jonathan Taylor at this point are kind of fantasy guys. Just kind of excited to see the fantasy production that he has, but I think people are just kind of losing focus of how good Jonathan Taylor is when he's healthy and when he's in the game. I think he's one of the best running backs in the league. So I think that he wants to come out early and remind people of that. I think the Colts want to lean on that because that's kind of the most consistent thing that they'll have on their offense or in their arsenal. So I want to think they wanted to lean on that early. Greg saying he wants to see CJ Stroud running for his life. Yeah, we hope that with the pass rush that we can get back there early and often. I know Zaire Franklin, EJ Speed, the guys over at the trenches, they've been talking about just kind of this discourse going back and forth throughout this offseason between CJ Stroud and the Colts linebackers, talking about plays that they did or did not make during their games last season. But yeah, I do want to see EJ Speed getting in there, some design blitzes. And then Latu, DeForest Buckner, Kwity Paye. I mean, there's just so much. They have so much firepower, but a lot of it is potential firepower because you're not sure what you're getting in Latu exactly, and you're hoping that you're getting more than what you've been getting from guys like Kwity Paye and Dio Adangbo. But yeah, I think if there's a game for them to get started on a high note, I think it is against this Texans group and their weak offensive line. Paul's going to be at the game. How many of you guys going to the game? It is in Indianapolis. I live in Indianapolis, but I will not be attending the game. Glenn in the chat, giving some Colts support. Appreciate that, man. Wyatt saying he wants to feel good about the Coach Partridge hire after this game. If the big boys play up front to their abilities, we should be fine. Yeah, I think so. I think the lack of additions to the secondary, I think, has been a little bit overblown. I think I would have done things differently. I think most people that are watching right now would have done things differently in terms of how they handled the secondary. But I do think that the Colts defensive front can kind of alleviate the strain that they've got on there. I want to see Coach Partridge come in, get pressure with the new guys, draw up some exotic blitzes, maybe not blitzes, but stunts, pressures up front. Just kind of a defense that's been so simple throughout the 2 years that Gus Bradley's been here. Just hope that this new hire, and Coach Partridge brings some of those exotic packages or those maybe not even exotic, just exotic relative to what Gus Bradley's been used to running. But yeah, the stuff that he's done with his experience back at Pitt, just to get some more pressure, simulated pressure, actual pressure, whatever it takes to kind of alleviate the strain on the defensive backs. Truitt says we can end the streak. Pretty confident. I do wish I don't know how to get a poll going up here, but I would love to see kind of what everybody is expecting in terms of final score. If you guys got final score predictions, you can go ahead and throw those in the chat. I don't know if I have one yet, but I'll just kind of read yours and I'll just steal whichever ones I agree with the most. So just throw your final score predictions there in the chat. Yeah, Truitt saying the Colts are a little bit slept on. I don't know what the betting lines are, but they were favoring the Texans pretty heavily last I checked a couple days ago. And I think it's a little bit less about the Colts and a little bit more about all the hype that the Texans have been getting. Which is fun. Sexy new position or a sexy young quarterback there at CJ Stroud. I mean, that having a guy that's gone out and proven it more than the Colts guy and Anthony Richardson, then I think that's going to always get national media attention. National media attention is always going to kind of sway the betting lines in Vegas. But yeah, I think it's going to be a lot closer game than national media tends to make it out to be. I think we're going to go through kind of those. Is it on CBS? Yeah, it's on CBS. So you're going to go through that rundown, that pregame show where they're going across their 5 analysts and throwing up the team logo of who they're predicting is going to win the game, and it's going to be 5 Texans. I'm pretty sure of that. I'm not sure that anyone's going to really believe in what the Colts are able to accomplish until they go out and do it, because it's all kind of hypothetical at this point. Paul, you're from Indiana, but not going to the game. Oh, you're from Indiana, but you living down in Florida near Disney World now. Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the. It's fun to be in Lucas Oil Stadium, but I do kind of like watching on the TV better. Um, just less sensory overload, I guess. I always get migraines a little bit when I'm in the stadium just because of how much there is to focus on. And I feel like you'll miss some little details when you're watching from however far away you are. Paul saying 28-24 Colts. I like that one. Yeah, if the Colts come away with it, I don't think it's going to be it's going to be less than 1 score. So yeah, less than 7-point difference there. Paul saying the Texans are a 2.5 or 2.5 point favorite. Yeah. Usually you don't see that when they're the away team, unless there's like a huge lopsided kind of mismatch that you've got going on there, and I don't think that's what we have here in Week 1. This was the first practice today of the regular season for the Colts, so we got an official injury report for the first time this season. I'll throw that up there. Luckily, 2 players on the injury report. We can go over any of these guys. We'll just start with Josh Downs since he's there at the top of the list. I'm just kind of operating under the assumption that he's not going to go Week 1. I think, what is this? We're at a month now since that injury, that unnecessary tackle by Nick Cross in training camp in that 7-on-7 period. He's been dealing with that ankle sprain. Usually, I think I would like to see the percentages, but just kind of looking at guys that haven't practiced in a month and then going into game week without having any practice and participation, you usually don't see those guys suit up. The only reason that it gives me kind of a little bit of pause is just because of the weight that's been put on this Week 1 matchup against a division rival, the same team that knocked you out. There's going to be a lot on the line there. So just kind of going into that situation in Week 1 kind of makes me it makes me not willing to say he's definitely not going to go. Normally in any situation, I would say there's no way he's going to go. We'll just kind of see how they handle this game. But I would rather see Josh Downs not have to rush back to get into the lineup. I think at wide receiver, you can kind of limit snap counts more so than in other positions. Like if this was an offensive tackle we were worried about, who was trying to come back from an injury, that I think he's either in or he's out of the game. I think with receiver, you can kind of rotate him a little bit to get him in. So maybe that's something they try. I know that's something Josh Downs dealt with last year, with his injury last year. That he said, I think he was warming up before the game, and coach asked him if he could go, and he said, "I can give you 15 snaps." And he's like, "All right, bet." So he went out there for 15. I think that's something they could do again. But with him not practicing for a month, still being on the did not participate list today, I'm operating under the assumption that he will not be going. Patrick in the chat saying 26-24 Texans. Downer. Yeah, Paul saying 28-24 Colts. So you guys are close on the score there. Just Patrick's got the result flipped in favor of the bad guys, right, Patrick? We got NFL Nerd here in the chat on YouTube. Saying 1, last year the Colts beat the Texans with AR. 2, the Colts took Texans to the wire without AR. 3, the Texans won 7 one-score games last year, saying that's volatile. And saying 4, the Texans were top 3 in turnovers. Yeah, so Yeah, top 7 or 1-7 and 1-score games. I feel like you get a lot that kind of swings your way in 1-score games, which is why I think you're saying that's volatile. That can be flipped one way or the other. Yeah, week 2. What was it? Was it week 2 last season? Colts versus Texans. Uh, they were stomping them. They really had the game under control. The Colts did with AR. I think the final score came out to look a little closer than it actually was, but I think early on in the game they were controlling it. They got comfortable and then they kind of rode it out. So yeah, I think that it's just difficult to kind of look back to that game because while they had AR, they were pretty banged up going into week 2, and then you have a quarterback who was in week 2 of his rookie season in CJ Stroud, who went on to progress a ton and really kind of up his game into that next tier. So you're kind of, I wouldn't be going into this week 1 matchup expecting CJ Stroud to play exactly like he did week 2 last season. So I'm not trying to take too much away from how that turned out in terms of the Texans offense against the Colts defense. However, Anthony Richardson against that Texans defense, that is something that I think you can look at how they performed week 2 last season, and you can kind of see some of those things coming back into the game plan come this matchup. And I think you should expect some success offensively for the Colts. Paul saying or asking what the Notre Dame rookie kicker's name. Yeah, that's Spencer Schrader, who is on the practice squad. I think you're referencing that because Matt Gay listed here with the hernia on the injury report did not practice. I would say it's probably 50-50 whether he goes. I'm not 100% sure. I don't know how to read that. We'll just kind of keep monitoring that, barring they make any kind of move for some veteran guy who's sitting around on the free agents. I think Spencer Schrader is kind of the caliber of kicker that you're going to be able to get at this point anyway. And they've already got him on the practice squad. So remember, going into week 1 on game day, you can elevate 1 practice or 2 practice squad guys onto the active roster without having to make a roster move. So yeah, if Matt Gay can't go and they don't make any corresponding move to go out and get any other kicker, which I don't expect, then yeah, I think you'll likely see Spencer Schrader elevated on game day to come in and kick. Texans have a healthy Tank Dell and CJ Stroud. Yeah, as not first game rookies. Yeah, look at that. Yeah, what we were talking about when NFL Nerd put his question on there or his comments on there. Yeah, Tank Dell. I didn't mention him when I was talking about CJ Stroud, but yeah, also a guy who kind of progressed throughout the season. So you're getting a different version of that wide receiver and that wide receiver quarterback combo than you did previously last year. Wyatt's asking if Matt Gay's groin issue dated back to late last year when he missed several kicks. Hard to say. That's something that if you don't get treated or get dealt with hernia, then it just kind of lingers. I feel like when Chris Ballard had his press conference before the year, he was talking about things that went on with Matt Gay last year. Maybe he was alluding to possible injury issues he was dealing with. Maybe it was personal issues. But he was just saying how there's kind of more to the story to Matt Gay from last season. So yeah, it's possible. Why they said that after the Bengals game this preseason, that was when he kind of threw his hands up and said that something needed to be done about it because it was bothering him too much. So definitely, I would say throughout this preseason, that's probably the reason for a lot of the poor performance that he had this preseason. Which I feel like glad that he's getting it dealt with. If it takes him a month, I'd rather have a month of Spencer Schrader and then a healthy Matt Gay for the rest of the season than going through a whole season with Matt Gay dealing with an injury. So yeah, just hoping that this is the problem and it wasn't any other case of a kicker just kind of losing it, which I feel like they can tend to do. Just waking up one morning and kind of forgetting how to do their job. I'm hoping it's not that, and I'm hoping it is an injury issue that they can get resolved with some rest. Yeah, CJ's going to be introduced to a strong pass rush. That could be a huge factor. Yeah, I'm excited to see Latu. I'm excited to see how they utilize Taekwon Lewis and Dio Adengbo kind of bouncing inside for some of these rushing downs. And then, yeah, of course, Buckner and Grover Stewart. I think I'd like to see him get some or make an impact on pass downs a little bit more than he has, and he's said as much that he's something that or that's something that he's kind of been working on to kind of be this 3-down player. Yeah, Greg saying Collins, Diggs, and Dell are scary, especially if we don't get pressure. Yeah, I think that's a dynamic receiving group. I think Nico Collins is a really good receiver. I think Tank Dell was already a really good receiver last year, and he's getting another year, his sophomore season, to kind of see if he's taken that next step. So even without Stephon Diggs, which is he here? Is he what he's been in the past, or is he going to be kind of what he was at the end of the season last year with the Bills? I guess that's yet to be seen. How they use him and kind of what performance they'll get out of him. But mainly, yeah, out of that receiving group, I would say Diggs is the third threat there on that group. I would kind of focus more on what Tank Dell can do and what Nico Collins can do and has done to you in the past. Sean in the chat, a regular here. Yeah, I'd like to see you, Sean. How you doing, man? Score prediction, Sean. Patrick saying Diggs with 3 receiver sets historically isn't great. Once he feels like Stroud is going to want to try to spread the ball around, Diggs is going to flip out. Yeah, unfortunately for the Colts, this matchup is in week 1. I'm not sure that he's going to be flipping his lid in week 1, but definitely for their matchup later in the season, I wouldn't be surprised if there's been some discord in the group back there. But yeah, just kind of filling out their roles. I feel like what they kind of have in those 3 guys, 3 guys who kind of, in Collins and Dell and Diggs, are kind of all 3 guys who excel outside the numbers, not so much in the slot. I think of the 3, Diggs is the most likely to play in the slot. So I don't know if I didn't pay much attention or keep up with the preseason reps that they were getting or the training camp reps to see kind of how they were lining up. But yeah, I do think those are 3 guys that play best on the outside. So we'll kind of see what Diggs' role is, especially and kind of how those snap counts divvy up. Yeah, and Patrick, yeah, I'm feeling the same about Collins and Dell. That's who I'm more worried about the most. Paul's saying he expects the safety play and corners to show some improvement. I think we're in better shape than the media and Texans fan realize. I think so too. I think I'm going to pull out that meme of the story of our demise has been greatly exaggerated when you're talking about the Colts secondary. I think it's a below average secondary in the NFL. I believe that. I do. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it's one of the best. I think that is it. If there's a weakness on the team, that's the one, right? But I think what the defensive front's going to be able to do to alleviate kind of the pressures that are put on the corners, and then the defensive scheme that Gus Bradley's playing, just making it a simple scheme. Just kind of hoping that you go out there and those deep cover 3 corners, just kind of letting them know don't get beat deep. I think you can kind of be a bend but don't break defense that you've kind of seen with the Colts in the past. And I think, yeah, that they're going to be able to operate in a pretty stable way, which I think is not the sexy way of doing things. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty stable way to handle it. And as long as you're not dealing with massive communication errors on the back end, which you kind of worry about with the young guys in Brents and Jalen Jones and even Nick Cross back there. As long as you're not dealing with that on a constant basis, I think it's going to be a pretty stable defense, if not anything spectacular. Buck's going to get the benefit of Latu. I think everyone's going to get the benefit of Latu. I think it's good for DeForest Buckner, yeah, especially a guy who's been getting a lot of double teams, just to get a little bit more firepower on the defensive line. It's never a bad thing to keep adding firepower to your defensive line, so offensive lines can't just focus on one guy. I think Latu gives Tunsil a German suplex all the way back to IR. Yeah, not afraid of the left tackle side. Yeah, just kind of a spotty offensive line in general. What is it? Juice Scruggs had some struggles there at guard. He's kind of like, I mean, obviously he's going to be a higher level starter than what we'd think of when we talk about Danny Pinter. But Danny Pinter, a guy who played guard and kind of didn't really pan out. It wasn't the performance that you kind of wanted out of him, and he kind of showed that he didn't have that positional versatility, but you bounce him inside to center and he's kind of serviceable. I think Juice Scruggs is kind of that guy who was forced to play offensive guard for the Texans last year and didn't really give you what you want, but I think he'll be a little bit more natural inside. But I mean, that's yet to be seen also. So, I mean, there could be a couple of holes on that Texans offensive line. Wyatt saying the initial depth chart has Latu backing up Quiddy at strong defensive end. Yeah, so the official Colts depth chart, I don't know if I would put a ton of stock into what's going on there. Just a couple of weird things going on there where they don't even list backups to some positions and they just go or instead of putting them in order. Then you've got guys like Trevor Denbo listed at free safety. Who's not going to be a free safety really in any situation for the Colts defense. I think it's going to be situational, and there's going to be so much rotation on that defensive side of the ball. Quiddy is definitely going to be playing that strong side defensive end. I think that the Colts just kind of tend to have a habit of not listing rookies as starters for whatever reason. And they've done that kind of in the past. So just kind of putting Latu, slotting him in wherever. This isn't the official depth chart that they're using in their meeting rooms and on the defensive side of the ball. So I wouldn't take much stock into kind of how they're listing their players and kind of putting it out to the public. Yeah, NFL Nerd kind of going all out, listing all the reasons he think. NFL Nerd, I don't think I got a score prediction from you then. Yeah, let me know. Let me know how much you think the Colts are going to beat the Texans by then. He's saying AR dominated the Texans for 2 quarters. JT dominated the Texans for 3 quarters. Now the Texans have to face them both. Yeah, and I'm excited to see them actually play together for once. We got, 2 snaps of them last season? Yeah, just kind of excited to see them get going. Kind of see, you kind of know their how potent they are individually as threats, and you just kind of want to know what it looks like with both of them on the field, if that kind of amplifies it. Sean saying 27-23 Colts, so that's 2 for the Colts. I think Patrick's the only one that's predicted a Colts loss for week 1. Yeah, and Wyatt asking about being listed on the depth chart. Yeah, you should expect him to move around. I don't think that they're going to keep him on one side of the ball, and I think you're going to see Latu and Kwity Paye listed at the same position. You're definitely going to see snaps in week 1 with Kwity Paye and Latu on the field at the same time. So yeah, I mean, yeah, like I said, yeah, don't worry too much about what the official depth chart says, because I'm not saying that that's really accurate. Patrick saying Juice Scruggs is the Blake Freeland of guards. Blake Freeland catching a stray there. I think we have enough guards on the Colts roster that we're a little worried about. So, well, I guess one. I guess Danny Pinter would be the one that we have worried about at guard. But he's playing center now, so. Yeah, Paul saying that he doesn't take much stock in the Colts depth chart. Yeah, so weekly over on Colts on SI on horseshoehuddle.com, I'll be putting out a depth chart, which I do I pay attention to what the Colts depth chart says, but in kind of more using that sort of as a frame, and then kind of going off of how they actually utilize these guys in these roles and kind of the snap counts they're getting. But yeah, every week on Friday, before each game, I'm gonna be posting a depth chart, which I think will be a little bit more accurate of a look at how the actual depth chart that they're using looks. Depth charts are, I think, a little bit weird and a little bit, so it's become commonplace to kind of like have these on websites and for the teams to release those, and you see them in Madden. It's kind of gamified it a little bit. I think it's depth charts are a lot more fluid in real life, depending on the situation, than what you can really put into a little table-like format like that. So it's going to be fluid, but yeah, what I'm going to put out every Friday is going to be kind of my best guess based on observations and kind of what we're hearing on what the actual depth chart might look like. Patrick saying, yeah, they can move those guys. Yeah, I hope to see them kind of shift those guys even more than they did last season. I think the Colts did have a tendency to leave defensive ends on the side of the ball that they were comfortable on, or that they were comfortable having them on. So you didn't see Samson Ebukam rushing from the opposite side too often. Kwity Paye kind of rushed from the side. The only exception there is kind of those outside guys that they like to dip into the interior, which I think we'll see a ton of also. NFL Nerd with the 30-21 Colts. Yeah, that's the biggest spread we've seen so far. I think everybody here would love that, man. Yeah, Paul agreeing with that. He would love that. Patrick saying, I hope the Colts win, but I'm realistic. I think the Texans are better now than last year, and you can never discount the Indianapolis Week 1 pants crap, which is, yes, we said 16 years. They haven't won in 10, dating back 16 years, even then, they've won 2 in the past 16. So, yeah, never overrate that or never discount that. Paul saying, yeah, don't forget the Colts are 32-12-1 all time against the Texans. Yeah, and saying we'll find a way. Yeah, I think the Colts, they get the benefit of the advantage of they were in the Texans division ever since the Texans were an expansion franchise. So they had to deal with all those rough Texans teams, the David Carr era Texans teams. So that overall record's going to be a little bit skewed, but yeah, I mean, if we're kind of way in the 32-12-1 all-time record versus the Texans against the 2-16-1 record or 2-14-1 record over the past however many years for the Colts in Week 1, then you kind of just taking the lesser of two evils there, and just kind of hoping your team comes out on top. Yeah, Pat. Yeah, taking advantage of the expansion era Texans, and then with guys like Manning and Luck at the helm there. All right. Anything else crazy standing out to you in terms of matchups? I've really got nothing else for you. I will be back on Friday. So I'll put that depth chart out on Friday on horseshoehuddle.com. And I mean, we'll just kind of preview the game. This has been a little bit of a preview, kind of a little bit of the storylines that have been going on. But as always, the kind of the structure of these shows is going to be open-ended, kind of whatever you guys want to bring to the table. So it's just going to be like a hangout session pretty much 3 times a week here on the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. But tomorrow, I think we've got Drake and Andrew coming at you with the Horseshoe Huddle podcast. A little bit more structure there, and they'll get you all ramped up for the game. That'll be their last podcast before the game, too, so they'll be doing their preview and getting their thoughts out. Paul saying we are 9-9 in the last 10. Against the Texans, you're saying that, Paul? I would need to pull up the historical records. I don't know that off the top of my head. Five and 5. That makes a lot more sense. I was wondering how 9-9 could happen in 10 games. Yeah, I think it's pretty much 50-50. I'm not feeling super confident about a Colts win, and I'm not feeling super confident about a Colts loss. So, yeah, I think whatever's going to happen, it's going to be a 1-score game. It's going to be pretty tight. If I made you guys put your stamp on it, so I'll put my stamp on it also. Just kind of my prediction. I'm going to say 23-20. Texans win, which I'm not happy about it. I'm not happy to saying it. Not happy to be on Patrick's side there. But I hope they prove me wrong. Yeah, that's it tonight, guys. My name's Noah Gebert. You can follow me. You can throw me any questions that you want, my DMs are open. Just tweet at me or X me, whatever. You can throw that in there. Yeah, Paul not a fan of my prediction there. But yeah, my messages are open on Twitter. If you guys got anything you want to talk about in the show and you're not going to be here for the live show, but you want to watch the recording, throw the question at me. I'll answer it in the show. And then, yeah, for everybody that's watching on YouTube, if you want to get a question in, throw it to me on X or join the live stream. Just get in the chat. I just want this to be kind of a super back and forth between you guys. So yeah, hop in the chat. Let me know what you guys want to talk about, and I will talk about it. And that'll kind of be the situation 3 times a week. Aside from me being on X, you can follow Colts on _SI. That is the Horseshoe Huddle and Indianapolis Colts on SI X page. You can follow us, Horseshoe Huddle, on Facebook, and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Hit that notification. You'll be notified whenever I go live. You'll be notified whenever Andrew and Drake go live for the Horseshoe Huddle podcast. So you'll be getting probably a ding pretty much every weeknight throughout the NFL season. So yeah, if you're obsessed with the Colts, you want to talk Colts, you want to hear stuff about the Colts, this is the place to be. All right. Hey, you guys have a good night. I will see you guys for the stream on Friday.